Hey everybody, welcome back. My name is McKay Tebbs and I'm here to share another Pro Tools lesson with you today. Today we're going to be talking about Pro Tools 101, Lesson 10, Automation and Mixdown. We're going to learn all about automation today, how to do it, what it is, how to write it, how to read it, and at the end of that we're going to learn how to bounce down a final mix of your song. So let's get started. So one of the first things to remember about automation is automation can be written, it can be read. You write automation and you do it after you have recorded something, after you have a track to work on. First, you have to be able to see your automation line, and you do that in your track view selector right here. I'm going to click on it, and I'm going to click on the automation that says volume. So as soon as that, I've changed my view selector, so now I'm seeing the volume automation line. And to change the automation that's going on here, I'm going to use my grabber tool, and I'm going to start clicking on it. And you'll see that every time I click on it, I create a breakpoint. What happens is with these breakpoints, you can click on the breakpoints and drag them down, or you could drag them up. You could also move them from side to side. This is essentially what automation is. This line represents the volume level that your track is on. And when you pull the line down, you're pulling down the volume level. And so I just did that on this track. So let's see what that's like when we listen to it. The volume gets low, and then the volume gets high. So I just barely programmed some automation there for the volume. We heard it drop down and get lower in sound, and then we heard it get louder in sound. So that's how you do it. What if you want to get rid of these breakpoints that you've just added? Try holding down Option and clicking on them. And when you hold down Option, you can delete the breakpoints that you've added. But let's put some breakpoints back in there, and I want to show you something else with the trim tool. If you use the trim tool will switch sideways, flip up sideways, and then you can push a section of your volume line or whatever you're automating, you can push it up and down with the trim tool. So now I've got the trim tool evolved, and if I listen to that, it's going to sound like this. Totally gone. I pulled the volume down so much that we can't hear anything, but now it's going to come back in. So I kind of volume automated a mute there. I muted it. But there's another way to write volume automation, and that's by using one of the other tools, the pencil tool. And the pencil tool is probably the tool that's most commonly used for drawing automation. Now, right click on the pencil tool and you have different options for what kind of lines it draws. Your first option is freehand, and when I select freehand and draw on that automation line, I can draw shapes, and when I let go, it will create breakpoints for the shape that I just drew. So freehand is a very fun and easy way to draw your automation, and after that you can listen to it. You can also use the other shapes to draw automation. Let's try line shape. And when you have the line shape automation, it just draws a straight line, and it will just draw it back and forth or up and down to where you want it to go. And there's other ones. Let's try the triangle. When you do triangles, it's going to do a whole bunch of triangles back and forth. Let's try the square. See what that looks like. So you see that you can draw a lot of different things with your pencil tool. There's a lot of different shapes that can create a lot of different types of automation for you. I'm going to get rid of this automation that I just drew by highlighting it and then clicking the key delete. And you can delete all the automation if you want to just by selecting it like that and pushing delete. Now, volume is not the only parameter that you can automate. Let's go back to the track view selector, and we can also automate the mute. We can automate the pan. And at the moment, I have a send on here with some reverb, so I can automate the reverb level if I want, and I can also automate the delay level if I want to. Let's try the pan. And here I have the pan automation on. I'm going to go back to my pencil tool and grab the triangle. And now I'm going to try automating with the triangle. Now, this is the pan automation. So panning is where your sound goes from the left speaker to the right speaker. And with this triangle automation, I've automated it so that the sound is going to bounce back and forth from the left speaker to the right speaker. So when I push play, I'm going to zoom in a little bit so we can see this a little more. When I push play, we're going to hear that. It's here, now it's there, now it's here, now it's there. Now, there is a parameter that's in place that's making it a certain size. Right now, these triangles are in quarter note sizes, so every quarter note is going back and forth on the beat. And what decides that is the grid mode that you're on. So up here in grid mode, I have quarter notes selected, and I'm going to come here and I'm going to change it to whole notes. And if I select the whole note there, now when I go and I write that triangle, it's going to do it in increments of whole notes instead of in quarter notes. And that might be better for me for what I'm trying to do, because then you're really going to hear the effect more, because it's going to be on one side a little bit longer than it's going to be on the other side. So right, left, right, left. So you can use automation to automate all kinds of different parameters and add a whole new level of creativity into your work. You can also add automation down here in your lane selector. If you come down to the bottom of your track, there's this icon here that if you click on it, it opens up a new lane of information. Right now it says volume, as in my volume line. So you'll see that underneath my track, I have the volume line there. Up on top of the track, I have the pan line. And if I press this plus button right here, I can add another automation lane, and I can change this one to be the mute one. I could hit the plus button again and add another automation lane for the reverb. Okay, so you can use these lanes down here to automate right on the tracks without having to switch back and forth. Sometimes people like to keep their waveform on the main track and then do their automating on the lanes underneath. If you want to get rid of a lane, you hit the minus button. And if you want to hide the lanes, you hit the lane indicator icon right on the bottom of the track. Let's talk a little bit about automation modes as well, and what they are different ways of working with your automation. Notice that every track has this green read button on it, or auto read in some cases. Whenever you see that, it means it's reading the automation that is written. If there's no automation written, it's not really reading anything, but it's still going to say read. But if you click on that, you have different options for your automation. You could have the off option, and you could probably guess what that will do. If there's automation on the track, it will turn that automation off. Read is what you want to have when there's automation there and you want it to be read, you want it to be happening. But sometimes you want to create automation, and to do that you would select write. And when you're in write mode, that's when you can write and you can create automation. So let's go to write mode right now, and let's go to our volume here. I'm also going to open up this window, this output window here. And when I do that, I get the slider here that allows me to control it in real time. You see how there's this icon next to the output button? And if you click on that icon, it's essentially the same slider that you have here in your mix window. It's exactly the same. And so it's just another place of accessing that. See how I can click on that and now I'm accessing that slider? So the cool thing about writing automation this way, instead of using the pencil tool or the grabber tool to put breakpoints in, you can adjust the slider up and down in real time as you're listening to the song, and it will add breakpoints in while you do that. So I'm in write mode. All I'm going to do is push play, and then I'm going to start grabbing the slider and moving it up and down. See that red line that's being written? That red line is the automation that I'm writing in as it plays in real time. And when I'm done, the blue line becomes the red line. So you see all this automation that I just wrote in here, and I did that in write mode. So anyway, that can be a good way to create your automation too, is opening up this output window and then selecting write. And as soon as I finished write mode, it automatically switched to latch mode. Did you see that? I was in write, now it's in latch mode. Latch mode is kind of a touch-up mode. It's like originally you'll start doing that in write mode, but then you might need to touch up some of the automation. When you write automation in latch mode, it's going to latch on to the last place you leave the sender and just stay there. It latches on. That's why it's called latch mode. So let's write some more automation in latch mode and see what happens. I have now let go. My hands aren't on, and see how the red line stays down? I moved it, the red line stays where it is, and now when I push stop, you're gonna see, okay, as soon as I stop, that red line will go back up to where the blue line is. But with latch mode, as soon as you let go, it latches on to wherever you let go, and it will stay there on that level. Now you want to contrast that to touch mode, because touch mode does not latch at the end. When you use touch mode, it's going to create automation, but as soon as you let go with your hands, it will jump back up to where the blue line is, and it won't latch on to where you left it. It will just jump right back up to the blue line. So let's try it in touch mode now. Oh, see that? Okay, I'm gonna let go. As soon as I let go, it just jumps right back up. So it allows me to touch up on what I've written, but then it goes right back up to where the volume line should be, or where in this case it normally is. So that's the different kinds of modes you can automate in. So just to recap that, you can automate with the pencil tool, you can automate with the grabber tool, and you can also automate by opening up the output window here, playing it in real time, and switching your automation mode to write, latch, or touch. When you're done automating, it's important to put it back into read mode, and then it will read the automation, and then you don't accidentally write automation when you didn't intend to. I'd also like to introduce you to the automation window. If you come up here to the window menu, you can select automation and it will open it up. Here is the automation window, and these red buttons here are parameters that you can customize, and you can click on them to decide what you want to automate. So by selecting them, you can decide that. But notice that at the top, there is also a suspend button. If you use the suspend button and hit it, it will suspend all automation. So look at this automation line right here. I've got automation written. Now I'm going to click the suspend button, and you'll see this blue line appear, suspending the automation that I wrote. So it just brings the volume level up to wherever the status quo is. But that's how you can suspend automation without losing it. So sometimes you might be automating and you might not want to hear the automation for a second, so you can suspend it and then you can start it back on. Once again, you find that in the window menu under automation, but there is a handy dandy keyboard command for this, Command 4. Use your numeric pad and go Command 4. Command over here, number 4 on your numeric pad can open and close the automation window. But there's more. You can also add automation to your plugins. Whatever plugin you're working on, you can automate parameters in there. So let's go now to this track. Let's add a plugin. I'm going to add an insert of EQ here, EQ 7-band insert. I've got it here. So notice that at the top of this insert, this plugin that I have here, I have this button here. This button is called the Automation Enable plugin. If I click on it, I get this option of what do I want to automate, and I can select it here. There's a lot of options here. Let's just say, well, I want to automate high pass frequencies, and I also want to automate. So I'm going to push add now. I'm going to add that, and I'm going to also automate the low band gain. So I just selected 2 parameters of the EQ that I want to automate. I pushed OK. So now that's there. Now if I go back to my edit window and I go back to my track view selector, I can come down here and I see there's a new option here for EQ3 7 band. And those 2 parameters that I had selected in there, I can now automate them. The high pass frequency, let's select that. So now I have this high pass frequency line here and I can automate it. So I'm going to start with my pencil line tool and I'm going to automate up and down, just back and forth. And now I'll be able to hear that automation play out in my frequency when I add that in there. So it is possible to automate plugins. It's also possible to automate volumes and pannings and mutes and things like that. And it's really a great way to be creative when you're doing your mixing in Pro Tools. Alright, I'm done mixing now. I'm done automating. I've worked through that. I'm happy with how things sound. Now I need to get my song out of Pro Tools and create a file that I can share and use in other places. An MP3 file or a WAV file or an AIFF file, whatever kind of file you want. In other words, it's time to bounce the mix. And so how do you get your music out of Pro Tools when you're ready to get it out? And you bounce the mix. You simply go up to the File menu, and in the File menu, there is an option to bounce the mix. And notice there's also a keyboard command for it. The keyboard command for bouncing your mix is Option Command B. When you hold down Option Command B, it will automatically take you to this window where you can bounce your mix. So either go to File and then go to Bounce Your Mix or Option Command B. But here is the window that opens up when you're ready to bounce your mix. First of all, you have to name your song. So let's name the song. Second of all, you get to pick what kind of file you want to create. An MP3 file, AIFF, a WAV file. You can select that right here. There's also an option to choose your mix source. And down below that, file format, interleaved. Just want to add that sometimes it says multi-mono, sometimes it says interleaved. This has to do with your stereo tracks, and it's a good idea to leave it at interleaved. If you want your stereo tracks to be connected, to be interleaved with each other, then you're going to have to select that. If you select multi-mono, then it's going to separate those stereo tracks into 2 different files for each of those stereo tracks. You'll have multi-mono tracks. So just leave it on interleaved. You can also adjust the bit depth and the sample rate here, and you have those options. And then finally down here at the bottom, you get to choose where to save your file. Notice that one of the defaults is session folder bounced files. In a Pro Tools file folder, there's all those subfolders, and one of them says bounced files, or it will say that once you bounce a file in there. So that's a very easy way to find your final file for your song after you've bounced it. But you could also go to the directory and you could choose someplace on your computer, someplace else where you might want to save it to. But a good default is the bounce files folder. Next, there's this option here to bounce offline. That is a good option to keep on. If you bounce it offline, it will bounce it faster. If you have it off, it will bounce it in real time. What I mean by that is if your song is 3 minutes and 33 seconds long, then it will take 3 minutes and 33 seconds to bounce your song. But if you have this offline button checked, then it's going to do it much faster than that. It'll do it as fast as your computer can process it. So in general, you just want to leave that on because it saves you time and there's no reason to not bounce it fast. And when you finish all that, you just push the bounce button down here and you're ready to go. The last thing I'm going to show you today is how to adjust the parameters of your session backups. Did you know that Pro Tools will automatically back up your sessions for you without you even thinking to resave and resave and resave? It does that automatically, and you'll see that when you open up your folder. There's all these different saved files, and you can adjust how often and how frequently it does that. And you control that in your preferences setup box. So let's go there right now. Go to Setup, and then we're going to go to Preferences, and then we're going to select the Operation tab. And here in the Operation tab, we have this part in the middle that says Auto Backup. First of all, enable session file auto backup. So you want to keep that checked so it will automatically back up your session files. And then it says keep 10 most recent session backups. So that's something we're thinking about. Like every time it backs it up, you're going to be at a different phase of the workflow. Like you'll have accomplished different tasks in your session. So it will keep all 10 of those, or 5. But look, I have it set to back up every 10 minutes. So every 10 minutes I work, it's going to create a backup file of what I just worked on. So you can imagine if you're working on a project for 10 hours, every 10 minutes is going to add up. You could end up having 100 files in there. Or you could just keep the 10 most recent, just 10 most recent. So once it gets past 10, it starts deleting the older files for you. So anyway, you can adjust those here in the auto backup, and it's a good idea to spend some time in your Pro Tools preferences, looking at all the different parameters that you can customize and you can adjust to fit your needs. Well, that's it for our Pro Tools lesson for today. Thanks for coming and thanks for watching. And that's it for lesson 10, the last lesson in the Pro Tools 101 book. Hooray, you did it, you made it to the end. Now go pass your certification test. Good luck with that. I hope it works for you. My advice as far as passing the test would be study the review discussion questions, if you have the textbook that includes them, because some of the newer ones don't. Study the knowledge checks if you have access to those. If you know all the answers to the questions on the knowledge check and on the review discussion questions, you're going to be in good shape to take that certification test, because some of those same questions are actually on the certification test. Anyway, thank you for coming, and I'll see you later.